What if eating a massive bowl of high-fiber organic whole grains is actually doing absolutely nothing for your body?
Right, like no inflammation reduction at all.
Exactly. No gut health boost. Just raw material passing straight through you, completely untouched.
It's a pretty jarring thought. I mean, especially considering fiber has been, the golden child of dietary advice for decades.
Oh, absolutely.
But as recent clinical trials are proving, if you don't possess the specific biological machinery to break that fiber down well, you are essentially eating a bowl of very expensive, very useless, complex carbohydrates.
And honestly, that paradox is exactly why we are here with you today for this deep dive. Because if you follow nutritional science even casually, you know the landscape is just navigational chaos.
It really is.
You have 5 different voices screaming at you to avoid carbs, or, eat only meat, go entirely vegan, or stop eating seed oils. So our mission today is to cut through all that noise. We are not interested in fads. We are looking to build the ultimate science-backed nutritional blueprint.
Yeah, and to do that, we are analyzing a really formidable stack of clinical data. We are pulling top-tier nutritional consensus lists from the Mayo Clinic, Harvard Health, UC Davis Health, Healthline, and Revere Health.
Right, and we are cross-referencing all those institutional lists with the brand new 2025 to 2030 K-State Dietary Guidelines, a monumental JAMA internal medicine study on protein, a fascinating Stanford clinical trial on gut health, and the European Health Green Project report.
There is a massive amount of biochemistry in these documents, but the objective is to extract the actionable mechanisms,
Yeah.
We want to understand not just what these foods are, but how these specific molecular compounds physically alter the structure of your heart, your brain, and your cellular aging process.
Okay, let's unpack this.
Yeah.
To set the mental stage for this analysis, I want you to imagine looking at a vibrant, bustling farmer's market, but overlay it with these subtle, glowing molecular structures hovering over the produce.
I love that visual.
Right. We are looking past the skin of the food and directly into the chemical payloads. But before we get to the heavily debated studies, we have to establish the baseline. Because across Mayo Clinic, Harvard, and all our other sources, there is a unanimous consensus on a few non-negotiable staples.
Yeah, we can bypass the basic advice that, fish is good for you because the clinical literature is highly specific about the actual mechanisms at play here.
Right. Like Healthline notes that a 100-gram serving of wild Atlantic salmon packs about 2.2 grams of omega-3s. But Harvard Health actually details exactly what those specific fatty acids are doing once they reach your brain.
Which is where the data gets incredibly targeted.
Yeah, so those omega-3s actively lower blood levels of beta amyloid. And for anyone tracking cognitive longevity, beta amyloid is the exact protein that forms those damaging neurotoxic clumps in the brains of people with Alzheimer's disease.
Wow.
Yeah, we aren't just talking about vague brain energy. We are talking about a targeted strike force clearing out the physical debris that causes cognitive decay.
And we see a similar localized defense mechanism with berries, actually.
Oh, really?
Yeah. The brain is notoriously difficult to protect because of the blood-brain barrier. It acts like this microscopic, highly restrictive security gate.
Right, keeping the bad stuff out.
Exactly. Almost nothing from your bloodstream is allowed in, which protects your brain from toxins, but it also prevents most dietary antioxidants from reaching your neural pathways.
But berries seem to have the VIP pass, don't they?
They do.
Because Harvard's Brigham and Women's Hospital conducted a study, and they found that women eating 2 or more servings of strawberries and blueberries a week delayed their memory decline by up to 2.5 years.
Which is a massive timeline shift just from introducing a baseline level of berries.
It really is. And Healthline highlights the mechanism for this. Blueberries contain these plant pigments called anthocyanins.
Right, and those anthocyanins possess the precise molecular structure required to slip right through that blood-brain barrier.
So they just walk right past security.
Essentially, yeah. And once inside, they sweep up the oxidative rust accumulating around your neurons. It completely reframes a handful of blueberries from a simple snack to, like, a highly specialized neurological maintenance protocol.
That is so cool. And the dark leafy greens and cruciferous vegetables operate on a similar level of biological sophistication.
They absolutely do.
Revere Health notes that broccoli is bursting with vitamin C and E. But Mayo Clinic points out the molecular details, specifically broccoli's glucosinolates.
Sulfur compound.
Exactly. These sulfur compounds literally trigger your liver's cellular detoxification enzymes.
Okay.
And then you add in the lutein, which physically deposits into the macula of your eye to protect your vision from light damage.
It's an absolute powerhouse food.
Yeah. I always kind of compare these foundational foods to index funds in investing. They might not be the latest fad, but they offer guaranteed compound interest for your heart and brain over time.
That's a great way to look at it. If we connect this to the bigger picture, these foods aren't just inert calories. They are active disease fighters, combating systemic inflammation and oxidative stress.
Right.
But to get to your brain, those protective compounds have to travel through your blood vessels. And the condition of those highways brings us to the absolute minefield of our deep dive, the great protein puzzle.
Oh man, the protein puzzle. Because while everyone universally agrees on fish and greens, the conversation around plant versus animal protein is intensely debated.
Oh, heavily debated.
And we have this monumental JAMA internal medicine prospective cohort study that provides some incredibly sobering data.
The scale of this study is what makes it impossible to ignore. I mean, they followed 416,104 participants over 16 years.
It is a massive sample size.
Huge. And it found that replacing just 3% of dietary energy from animal protein with plant protein lowered overall mortality by 10%.
But there is a specific data point here that stopped me in my tracks. Substituting plant protein for egg protein lowered overall mortality risk by 24% in men and 21% in women.
Yes.
And replacing red meat with plant protein lowered that risk by 13% for men and 15% for women.
And the really crucial detail here is the sourcing of that plant protein. The study specifically noted that replacing egg and red meat protein with plant protein from bread, cereal, and pasta resulted in lower overall and cause-specific mortality.
Okay, wait a second. Replacing eggs and red meat with bread and pasta. That completely contradicts the massive low-carb, anti-bread movement we see everywhere today. Are these researchers validating carb loading?
This raises an important question, and we have to look impartially at the exact mechanisms to understand why the data shakes out this way.
Right, because I am highly skeptical.
Understandably. But it has nothing to do with endorsing excessive carbohydrates. It comes down to the biochemical byproducts of protein digestion. When you consume heavy amounts of animal protein, like red meat or eggs, you ingest high levels of compounds called L-carnitine and choline.
Which naturally occur in those foods.
Right? But the danger isn't the compounds themselves, it is what your gut microbes do to them.
Oh, interesting.
Specific bacteria in your gut metabolizes L-carnitine and choline and turn them into TMAO, which is linked to cardiovascular disease.
Because TMAO alters your cholesterol metabolism, right?
Yeah.
Making it easier for cholesterol to deposit into the artery walls.
Exactly, driving up arterial stiffness.
So it is the microbial exhaust from digesting the meat and eggs that damages the arterial walls. What happens with the plant protein?
Well, plant proteins lack those high levels of L-carnitine and choline. Conversely, they have an entirely different amino acid profile, rich in arginine and glycine, which may actually lower arterial stiffness.
Okay, that makes the biological mechanism perfectly clear. But I am still hung up on the delivery system. The JAMA study specifically listed bread and pasta. I assume they don't mean highly processed, bleached white flour, right?
No, definitely not. The longevity benefits were tied to whole grains. This aligns perfectly with the brand new 2025 to 2030 dietary guidelines from K-State.
Right, which emphasize building meals around whole foods with limited ingredients.
Exactly. But the term whole grain has been so diluted by marketing that we have to define it. Dr. Margaret Ashwell's European Health Green Project report gives the definitive criteria.
Oh yeah, her breakdown is fascinating. Because for a grain to genuinely be considered whole, it has to have all three original parts.
Right. First, the starchy endosperm, which is about 60 to 70% starch.
Then the germ, which has 28.5% lipids, plus vitamins and phytosterols.
And finally, the bran, which holds the fibers and minerals.
But when you buy refined white flour, you lose the bran and the germ, meaning whole wheat flour actually has 2.5 to 5 times more bioactive nutrients.
Right. But interestingly, modern industrial milling often creates wholemeal flour by separating these parts and then recombining them for shelf stability.
So modern milling is essentially like taking a car completely apart to transport it and then reassembling it perfectly at the dealership. It's still the exact same car.
Well, yes and no, and this is why reading labels is critical. You want to ensure all the original parts of the grain are actually in the food to get the cardiovascular benefits mentioned in the JAMA study.
Right, because recommendations globally suggest 3 to 7 servings a day, but almost no one actually hits this target.
Barely anyone.
So let's follow that grain down into the digestive tract. The main reason we are told to eat whole grains is for the fiber. But does eating a mountain of fiber automatically fix our health?
That's the billion-dollar question. And a Stanford clinical trial tackled this head-on. They divided 36 healthy adults into a high-fiber diet group and a fermented foods group for 10 weeks.
And the high-fiber group was eating things like legumes, whole grains, and nuts, right?
Correct. But they did not see an increase in microbiome diversity.
Why, really?
Really? And their inflammatory proteins didn't decrease at all. Actually, high fiber led to more carbohydrates in their stool, meaning the fiber wasn't breaking down.
Wow. But the fermented foods group, so people eating yogurt, kimchi, kombucha, kefir, they saw a stunning increase in microbiome diversity.
A massive increase, and a drop in 19 inflammatory proteins.
Including interleukin-6, right? Which is heavily linked to rheumatoid arthritis and type 2 diabetes.
Exactly.
Here's where it gets really interesting. Eating a ton of high-fiber whole grains without the right gut bacteria is like delivering a massive pile of bricks to a construction site where there are no bricklayers.
Oh, that's a perfect analogy.
The material is there, but nothing gets built.
What's fascinating here is what this says about the industrialized human dilemma. Our modern guts might be so depleted of fiber-degrading microbes that short-term fiber intake literally does nothing.
We don't have the bricklayers anymore.
Exactly. We might need fermented foods to actively remodel the immune system and prime the gut first.
That is just wild. But, healthy eating isn't just about discipline and microbes. Looking at these lists, some of the best foods feel like absolute cheats.
Oh, absolutely.
Like coffee and tea. Harvard Health cites a Johns Hopkins study where a 200 milligram caffeine tablet helped participants correctly identify images the next day.
Proving caffeine actually solidifies new memories.
Yes, and dark chocolate. Revere Health and Healthline both praise dark chocolate as long as it's greater than 70% cocoa.
Right, because the cacao plant has flavanols that prevent blood clots and lower blood pressure.
And UC Davis Health even specifically highlights chocolate milk as the greatest recovery drink, according to their physical medicine experts.
It really is a fantastic recovery tool.
And potatoes. Healthline finally redeems the potato, noting that when it's baked with the skin on, its resistant starch makes it one of the highest satiety foods on Earth.
And we can't forget garlic and bitter melon. Healthline points out garlic's allicin, which lowers LDL cholesterol.
And bitter melon's traditional use for managing blood sugar.
Huh?
I have to say, seeing that my morning coffee and my occasional dark chocolate habit are actually neuroprotective makes me feel so validated.
It is empowering. But remember, context is key. Adding chocolate to a highly processed diet won't save you, but as part of the diverse whole food matrix we've discussed today, these treats are powerful phytochemical delivery systems.
So what does this all mean? Let's distill this entire deep dive. You need to build your foundation with the undeniable staples, your greens, your berries, your fish.
Right.
Then consider swapping some animal proteins for whole grain plant proteins for longevity.
Lowering that TMAO.
Exactly. And finally, support your gut with fermented foods so your body can actually use all that great nutrition.
I do want to leave you with a final, lingering idea based on the Stanford study's findings.
Oh, lay it on me.
If the industrialized human gut has genuinely lost the ancestral microbes required to break down healthy fiber, will the future of nutrition look entirely different?
How do you mean?
Well, before a doctor prescribes a healthy diet, will we first have to swallow a microbe pill to reseed our guts, just so we have the biological machinery required to digest our food?
Wow.
It changes the whole paradigm from you're what you eat to you are what your microbes can digest.
You are what your microbes can digest. That is profound. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. I hope this helps you look at your next meal through an entirely new lens. See you next time.